Ventura Road. 2 lanes of cracked black asphalt running straight as a rifle shot through the flattest, emptiest, most sun-hammered land you've ever seen in your life. Now fill it with everything a family owns in the world, tied to the roof of a 1928 Ford truck with baling wire and strips of old cotton shirt. Add a mattress bungee corded to the running board, a cast iron skillet wrapped in newspaper wedged under the seat, and 3 people inside the cab sitting so close together that you can feel every person breathing. Add a dog in the truck bed who stopped barking 2 states ago and just stares at the horizon now with eyes that have given up asking questions. Add the smell. God, add the smell. Dust and motor oil and unwashed bodies and something organic and wrong underneath all of it. Something that used to be food, something that used to be hope, something that's been fermenting in the heat since Kansas. That's Route 66 in the summer of 1937. The Mother Road, they called it. 2,400 miles of miracle pavement running from Chicago, Illinois, all the way to Santa Monica, California, where the road ends at the Pacific Ocean and the orange groves begin, and everything is supposed to be different. That's what the pamphlet said. That's what the word was. Passed around in the work camps and the relief lines and the church basements back in Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, California. Say it slowly. California. Even the sound of it sounds like water, sounds like shade, sounds like a wage that doesn't evaporate the same week you earn it. They called the people on that road Okies. Didn't matter if you were from Oklahoma or Texas or Kansas or Missouri. If you were driving west with everything you owned and nothing where you came from, you were an Okie. And Okie was not a word they said kindly. We're going back there tonight, not as people looking at the famous photographs. Dorothea Lange's mother with her hollow eyes and her children pressed against her. We've all seen those pictures. We've seen them so many times they've become almost comfortable, almost abstract, just history, just art. We're living it tonight. One day on that road. One person. Everything they would have smelled, felt, feared, and survived. I make these history stories, and I'll be honest, I don't know if you listen to them to sleep or if you're just someone who finds the sound of other people suffering strangely calming at 11 o'clock at night. And look, I'm not judging. The 1930s were objectively terrible, and sometimes terrible is comforting in a weird way. Get comfortable. Here we go. Your name is Ray Calloway. You're 19 years old. You grew up in Boise City, Oklahoma, in Cimarron County, which is the furthest west county in a state that is already pretty far west. You know how to drive a fence post into dry ground. You know how to judge weather from the colour of the sky. You know the particular silence that comes just before a dust storm, when the birds stop and the wind stops and the whole world seems to hold its breath for about 30 seconds before everything goes black. You know these things because you grew up on a farm. Used to be a farm. 1,100 acres of wheat ground and cattle. Pasture your grandfather broke from raw prairie with a mule and a John Deere walking plough. Your grandfather worked that land for 40 years. Your father worked it for 23. You worked it for 8, from the time you were tall enough to follow a furrow to the morning last November, when the bank man drove up in a green Chevrolet and handed your father a piece of paper with a number on it. The number was what the bank said the farm was worth now. The number was also what the farm owed. Those 2 numbers were the same. Your father stood in the yard holding that paper for about 5 minutes without saying anything. You stood next to him. The wind was blowing, which it always was, which it had always been. But this wind had something in it. Brown. You could taste it. The topsoil of the Texas Panhandle. turned to powder by 3 years of drought, riding north on a January wind. "Well," your father said. He folded the paper up, put it in his shirt pocket, and went to tell your sister. That was 7 months ago. 7 months of selling what could be sold, deciding what to keep, watching your father's face go through stages like weather, anger, then something worse than anger, then a kind of flat calm that was somehow more frightening than the anger had been. Watching your sister Dottie, 14 years old, pack her books and her 2 dresses and her mother's hairbrush into a flour sack and not cry about it, because Dottie is tougher than either of you, she always has been, and that thought alone is enough to make your throat close up if you let yourself think it too long. So you don't. You lie on the ground now at 5:15 in the morning, and you look up at the underside of the truck. This is where you sleep. Under the truck. The truck is a 1928 Ford Model A with a flathead 4-cylinder engine and a crack in the block that your father wrapped in electrical tape and prays about every morning. It has 96,000 miles on it. The radiator boils over about every 60 miles, sometimes less in the heat. The right rear tyre is a recapped spare you bought in Amarillo for 65 cents, and it bulges on the inside in a way that makes you check it every morning with the feeling that today might be the day. Your father and Dottie sleep in the cab. The cab is 4 feet wide and smells like the dog, who's named Biscuit, who sleeps on Dottie's feet. You sleep under the truck because there is no room, and also because you are 19 and you told yourself it was fine. And it mostly is fine except when it rains, and except right now, when a scorpion is walking across the ground 12 inches from your left hand. You watch it. It doesn't know you're there. It goes about its business. Pale yellow-brown legs ticking over the dirt, tail curved up and trembling slightly like it's listening for something. You breathe very carefully. The scorpion changes direction, goes under a rock, gone. You breathe normally again. This is July 1937, and you're in a roadside camp outside Shamrock, Texas, which is about as far west as you can get in Texas before it stops being Texas and becomes something else. New Mexico, which is only marginally better. Around you, in this camp, there are approximately 30 other vehicles in various stages of mechanical despair. A 1931 Hudson with a busted headlight, and 2 kids asleep on the hood, using the warm metal as a bed. A Model T that someone has converted into something that is not quite a truck and not quite a car, piled so high with furniture and boxes that it looks like a house that has decided to leave. A canvas tent with a rope tied between 2 scrub cedars, hung with damp laundry that isn't drying because the air itself is damp with dust, and the laundry has been damp for 2 days now, and will probably still be damp when they fold it and put it back on. This is your world right now. This is the world you woke up in. You ease yourself out from under the truck, moving slowly, knees first, hands flat on the dirt. The ground is still warm from yesterday. The ground here is always warm. You get the impression it's been warm since about 1934 and hasn't been cold since before the drought. You stand up. The camp is waking around you. Someone 40 yards away is coaxing a fire to life with dry cedar branches, the smoke rising pale grey-white in the early light. A baby is crying somewhere, thin and persistent. The kind of crying that's been going on so long it's become part of the ambient sound, like wind, like the distant rumble of a truck on the highway. A man with no shirt is standing by his car with the hood up, staring at the engine with his hands on his hips and his face doing the calculation that everyone on Route 66 does every morning. What's broken now? What will it cost? Can we still make it? The smell hits you as it does every morning. It's layered, and you've learned the layers the way you once knew the layers of weather. Top layer, wood smoke. Under that, dust. The ever-present alkaline bite of Texas panhandle dust, dry as bone, dry as chalk, a smell that coats the back of your throat. Under that, grease, engine grease, axle grease, the black specific smell of a working vehicle that hasn't been cleaned since April. Under that, bodies. 30 families living outside for weeks, washing when there's water to spare for washing, which there isn't always. Under that, something sweet and wrong. Rotting food somewhere. An overripe melon someone found at a roadside stand, half price because it was turning. The half of it that nobody ate, somewhere in somebody's camp. And underneath all of it, underneath everything, the smell of the road itself. Hot asphalt and diesel, and the particular metal and rubber smell of 10,000 cars that have driven this same stretch of highway. That smell baked into the ground around the camp like a brand. You breathe all of it in. You've stopped noticing it as bad. Your body has reclassified it as normal. That's what Route 66 does to you. It recalibrates normal so slowly you don't notice until you try to remember what things smelled like before. You go around to the cab of the truck and tap on the glass twice. Your signal. The window cranks down 3 inches, which is as far as it goes because the mechanism is bent, and your father's face appears in the gap. Earl Calloway, 48 years old. His face in the morning light looks like the land he used to farm. Worked over, weathered, drained of everything soft by years of wind and sun, and then by something more specific, something that came after the drought. His eyes are the same grey-blue they've always been, clear as creek water when there was creek water. He doesn't look broken. Your father is very specific about not looking broken. "Morning," he says. "Morning, how's the leg?" He got a cramp in his right leg 2 days ago, the kind that cramps from sitting in one position for 9 hours while you drive, the kind that doesn't fully go away. He doesn't answer the question directly. "Radiator's probably low," he says. "Check it before we start." "I know." "And that left front tyre?" "Dad," a pause. "I know," you say again, but softer. "I'll check everything." He nods. The window cranks back up. You hear Dottie murmur something inside, half asleep, and Biscuit's tail thumping against the seat. You go to the water can. The water can is a 5-gallon square steel can with a screw top, and it lives in the truck bed. It is one of the most important objects you own. You fill it whenever you can. You drink from it when you have to. You use it to top up the radiator. You ration it like money. Water and money have become the same kind of thing out here. You spend it carefully. You count what you have left. You feel sick when it gets low. There are about 2 gallons in the can right now. You pour half a cup into your palm and wash your face with it. The water is warm and slightly metallic, and it leaves your skin feeling clean for about 30 seconds before the dust finds it again. You drink 3 careful swallows. No more. Water is not for drinking like you're comfortable. Water is for surviving. You go to the engine. The hood of the Model A goes up from the front, hinged at the firewall, and when you prop it up with the rod you can see everything at once. Which is useful and also depressing, because you can see everything that's wrong. The radiator cap is warm but not hot. You unscrew it with a rag over your hand and look inside. Low. You pour half a gallon in, watch the level rise. You think about the remaining gallon and a half, and the fact that you have approximately 200 miles of July, Texas, New Mexico desert between you and the next town with a reliable well. You do the math. It's not good math. The math hasn't been good for about 7 months. The crack in the block is where it always is, wrapped in its electrical tape and its prayers. You press your thumb against it, feeling for warmth, feeling for the particular vibration that means it's getting worse. This morning it feels the same as yesterday, which is bad, but not worse than bad. You'll take it. You check the oil on the end of the dipstick. Low, always low. The engine burns oil at a rate that makes mechanics wince and makes your father's jaw tighten. You have half a quart in a can under the seat. You pour it in. The level comes up about 2 marks on the stick. Not where it should be, but closer. The left front tyre has been soft for 3 days. You pull the hand pump from under the truck bed, attach it to the valve stem, and pump 8, 10, 12 pumps. You bounce the fender with your palm. Better. You don't know how long that'll hold. You don't let yourself think about how long that'll hold. Around you, the camp is doing the same things. Every camp, every morning, the same ritual. Men crouched at engine compartments, women folding blankets, children carrying water from wherever water was found, dogs circling, the thin smoke from a dozen fires. It has the quality of something repeated so many times it's become liturgy, a kind of ceremony for people who have lost everything except the ceremony itself. A man comes up behind you, big man, maybe 55, with arms that show what a lifetime of physical work does to a body. Roped with muscle, even now, even after months of undereating, even with the grey in his hair and the stoop he's developed from too many nights in a car seat. He has a tin cup of coffee. He holds it out to you. This is Herschel Grimes, and he has been on this road for 2 years. You take the coffee. It's not really coffee. It's coffee grounds boiled twice, and then boiled again with chicory root, which is what you do when coffee costs 10 cents a pound, and 10 cents is a decision. But it's hot and it's bitter, and it wakes something up behind your eyes. "How's she looking?" Herschel asks, nodding at the engine. "Blocks holding, for now." For now. He says it the way people on this road say a lot of things, without judgment, without surprise, a statement of fact about the nature of things out here, where everything holds for now and you learn not to think about the rest of the sentence. Herschel is from Carthage, Missouri. He had a carpentry business, house building, the kind of work that was everywhere in the 20s when everyone was building everything and money was easy. Then 1929 happened. Then 1930 happened. Then 31 and 32 and 33, each worse than the last. He lost the business. He lost the house he built himself from scratch with his own hands on a 1/4 acre just outside town. His wife died of pneumonia in the winter of 35, and he doesn't talk about that part, but he told you about it once, at 3 a.m. when neither of you could sleep, and the way he said her name, Agnes, the way he said it, like it was still a fresh wound, like the word itself hurt in his mouth, that stayed with you. He's been on the road since 36. He's made it to California twice. He's been turned back from California twice. Rain last night, Herschel says. Down to Kumkari way, they're saying. Road might be muddy through New Mexico. You don't say anything. Rain on a dusty clay road out here doesn't mean what rain means at home. Doesn't mean relief. Means ruts that'll swallow your tyre. Means sections of road that turn to grease in about 20 minutes and don't dry out for hours. Means you might lose an hour or might lose a day depending on exactly how much rain and exactly how bad the road. How far are you getting today, you ask? To Kumkari, I'm thinking, or Albuquerque if the road's good. He pauses. Depends on the car. His car is a 1929 Studebaker President with a rear wheel that wobbles and a kingpin that needs replacing and about 300,000 miles worth of use in it. Every time you hear the Studebaker's engine turn over in the morning, there's a half-second of group prayer from everyone nearby that it catches. This morning it caught. You heard it from under the truck, that particular coughing rumble, and you breathed out. Listen, Herschel says, you go through Santa Rosa today. Don't stop at the Phillips station on the West End. They see Oklahoma plates. They charge double for gas. Go to the Sinclair on the main road. Mexican fella runs it. He's square. You file this way. This is the knowledge that gets traded at camps, at well stops, at roadside watering spots. Which towns are hostile? Which towns will let you buy a meal without trouble? Which mechanics will fix your car without cheating you? Which sheriffs will move you along, and which ones will do worse than that? This information passes from car to car, from camp to camp, like water passes, slowly, carefully, going where it's needed. Diner in Tucumcari, Herschel says. The Bluebird. You go in quiet, you sit at the counter, you don't make trouble. They'll feed you. 35 cents for a plate. Beans and cornbread. Maybe beef if you're lucky. He looks at you. You eat yet? You haven't. He hands you a piece of cornbread wrapped in wax paper. You take it. You take it the way you've learned to take things out here, without false pride, without the flinching dignity that costs more than it's worth. Thank your wife, you say. She's not my wife. She's my cousin's widow. We travel together. A pause. Thank her yourself, she's up. You eat the cornbread standing up, watching the camp disassemble itself in the early light. Because that's what happens every morning. The camp builds itself at dusk and takes itself apart at dawn. People rolling their tents, loading their water cans, cranking their engines, pulling onto Route 66 while the air is still merely hot instead of the kind of hot that starts around 9 and doesn't let up until well after dark. The cornbread is dry and slightly gritty, which is normal now. Everything tastes slightly gritty now. Your teeth have given up being surprised by it. You go back to the truck. Your father is out of the cab now, standing, stretching his leg, his face arranged in the expression he uses when he's in pain and not admitting it. Dottie is feeding Bisky the last of a heel of bread, crouched down with the dog's big, stupid head in her hands, talking to him in the quiet voice she uses when she thinks nobody's listening. She's telling him today is going to be a good day. You don't correct her. We got water for the radiator, your father asks. Less than a gallon after the fill-up. I'll look for a well before we hit New Mexico. He nods. He looks at the engine the way he used to look at the sky back home, assessing, reading, hoping the reading is better than he suspects. That crack held last night. Yeah, it'll hold today. This is also not a question. Yeah, you say again. The sound of 30 engines trying to start up as a particular music. Some catch right away, some take 3, 4, 5 cranks, the whole body of the person cranking, bending into it. One car, a couple years old Chevrolet 2 spots down, doesn't catch at all, and the man tries it 6, 7, 8 times, and after the 8th time he just stops and stands very still with his hand on the crank, and his wife doesn't say anything, and their children don't say anything, and for a moment the whole camp is quiet except for the wind. Then someone walks over with a tow rope. That's the other thing about this road. You help each other in ways that are almost wordless, not because people are sentimental, because everyone out here knows that today it's him and tomorrow it might be you, and the only insurance any of you have is each other. The Chevrolet catches on the tow. The man waves at the person who helped him. The person waves back. That's it. That's all of it. Your father settles himself behind the wheel. Dotty climbs in, biscuit in her lap, the dog hanging his head out the window and beginning immediately to look more alert, the way dogs do when they understand that moving is happening. You push in beside her, on the right, your elbow out the window because there isn't room for your elbow to be anywhere else. You're carrying $11.43 in a cloth bag, safety pinned inside your undershirt. The bag sits against your ribs and you're aware of it at every moment, the way you'd be aware of a bruise. $11.43 and roughly 1,200 miles between you and California. The math. You've done it 100 times. You do it again now as the truck pulls onto the highway, because the math is the thing that runs under everything, the constant murmur that never quite shuts up. Gas is about 15 cents a gallon in most places, more in the smaller towns, sometimes 18 or 20. The Model A gets about 20 miles to the gallon if you're gentle with it and the road is flat, which it mostly is here, which is one good thing. So a gallon of gas is about 20 miles. $1 buys you about 7 gallons, which is about 140 miles. 1,200 miles divided by 140 miles per dollar is about $8.50 just in gas. You have $11.43. That leaves about $3 for food, water, oil, whatever the car needs, whatever emergency comes up. In 1937 dollars, $3 is not nothing. $3 can feed 3 people for a few days if you're careful. If you don't eat at diners, if you find the work camps where they sometimes give out food, or the church groups that set up lunch lines, or the local ladies' aid societies that put out bread and coffee some mornings along the road. But $3 is also one blown tire, one night in a tourist camp that charges 25 cents for a spot, 1 quart of oil every other day at 15 cents a quart. You run the numbers and you put the numbers away because there's no use having them out where everyone can see them. Route 66 west of Shamrock is flat, and it is vast, and it is the colour of old bone. The road runs ahead of you to the horizon and keeps going past it. On both sides the land extends in all directions without interruption, without comfort, without even the dramatic emptiness of a desert. This isn't dramatic. This is just nothing. Brown grass and red dirt and the occasional oil pump nodding up and down on the horizon like some kind of slow, mechanical insect. The sky is enormous, so enormous that the truck feels small and the road feels thin as a thread, and you feel like something that could be erased without anyone much noticing. There was a time when you found this beautiful. Growing up in it, you stopped seeing it. Now you see it again, but differently. Now the emptiness means something specific. The emptiness is where the topsoil went. The emptiness is 3 years of drought after 10 years of overploughing, after everyone broke up the native grass because wheat prices were high and wheat needed room, after everyone forgot that the grass was what held the ground together. The grass was what made the land keep itself, and without the grass the wind had nothing to argue with. You pass a farmhouse about 6 miles out of Shamrock, abandoned. You can tell by the windows. Broken windows mean nobody broke them for the pleasure of breaking them, which means nobody was there to object when the wind broke them. The barn door hangs open at an angle. There are drifts of fine brown dirt piled against the north wall of the house, 4 feet high, 5 feet high, the slow patient burial of a building. The well has been filled in. You don't know if someone filled it before they left or if the dirt filled it for them. 3 years ago a family lived there. Now the dirt is reclaiming it. You don't slow down. Nobody slows down for abandoned farms on Route 66. If you slowed down for all of them, you'd never make California. Dottie is drawing in a small notebook, the way she does in the truck. She holds the notebook on her knee and draws the landscape going by. She's been doing this since Texas. You've looked at the drawings a few times. They're better than you expected. The dry economy of line she uses to suggest distance. The way she catches the particular angle of light that this part of the country has in the morning. Low and gold and a little dusty. A light that makes everything look slightly historical even while it's happening. She doesn't talk about the drawings. Albuquerque tonight, she says, not looking up from the notebook. Maybe, depends on the road. And the car, your father says. And the car, you agree. Biscuit's ears go flat. 3 seconds later, you hear what Biscuit heard. The beginning of a hot morning wind from the southwest, starting low and building. The kind that carries the fine grit that gets into everything. You roll your window up. Your father rolls his up. Dottie keeps hers cracked for air, but holds her hand over her face automatically. The gesture's so practiced now it doesn't need thinking. This is the thing about driving through the Dust Bowl's wreckage in July 1937. The drought is technically improving. The rains have come back to some of the hardest hit areas. But the land that was destroyed can't come back in a season or two. The wind still finds loose dirt because there's still so much of it, and the dust still rises, and the habit of covering your face is a habit you've had since you were 15 years old, and it's not going away anytime soon. The wind hits the truck sideways for about 40 minutes. Fine grit hisses against the windshield glass. The temperature inside the cab, which was already about 85 degrees at 7 in the morning, climbs noticeably. Dottie presses her face against her shoulder. Biscuit sneezes 4 times in a row. Your father drives with his hands very steady at 10 and 2, the way he drives everything. Steady and deliberate the way he did everything back on the farm. The way he does everything still, which is how you know he's still there, still present. Because the steadiness is him. It's the core of Earl Calloway. It's the thing the bank and the drought and the road haven't taken. The wind settles around 8:30. You unroll the window. The air smells like it always smells here. Hot metal and dust and the particular emptiness of a landscape where there's nothing green for miles to breathe. The road goes through McLean and through Shamrock and through Wheeler, and the towns are small and spare, and they look at you with the particular expression of towns that have seen 10,000 cars like yours go through and have developed a kind of transactional relationship with the passing desperate. Some towns you can stop in and buy what you need and not be bothered. Some towns the sheriff drives by slowly and makes sure you're leaving. You've been chased out of 2 towns in 2 states since you left Boise City. Both times for nothing. Both times because having Oklahoma plates and a loaded truck means you're an Okie, and being an Okie in 1937 means a lot of towns would prefer you kept moving. You stop for gas in Wheeler. The station is a single pump outside a wooden building with a roof that lifts slightly to the east, like it's been leaning into the wind for 20 years, and the wind finally made progress. An old man in overalls runs it, and he pumps your gas without comment, takes your $1.22 for 7.5 gallons without trying to charge you extra, and when you ask about road conditions to the west, he thinks for a moment and then says, "Road's fine to Amarillo, past Amarillo, west toward New Mexico. There was a stretch last week where they were grading. Might be rough. Don't know about rain." He says it all in the flat, unhurried tone of a man who knows that the information you need is simple and that there's no reason to complicate it. He hands your father change. Your father folds it into a shirt pocket without counting it, which he used to do. Count it. Counting change is a wealthy person's habit. You don't count change when change is all you have. Back in the truck, back on the road. The morning is getting serious about its heat now. The sun fully up, and the asphalt already beginning to haze at the edges where it's soft. The kind of softness that sticks to your tyres slightly. A barely perceptible drag that you know about because you can feel it in the wheel. That slight suck of the road wanting to hold you in place. Amarillo, your father says. Past Amarillo. We'll find water before then. You pass a homestead where someone is trying. You can see the trying from the road. The way the ground around the house has been scraped clear of weeds and packed down. The way there's a garden in a small fenced area with actual green in it. The kind of stubborn optimism that makes you feel something complicated. The person or people in that house have not given up. They have stayed. They are still working the land or what's left of the land, or what might become land again someday if the rain comes back and the topsoil builds up and the grass holds. Your family didn't stay. You've had this conversation with yourself before, more than once, late at night under the truck while the camp slept around you. Whether leaving was right, whether your father made the right call, or whether stubbornness would have been better, whether holding on would have meant something or would have just meant dying more slowly in place. You don't know the answer. You're not sure there is one. The signs start just before Amarillo. You don't mean Route 66 signs. Route 66 is well signed. The famous shield-shaped markers, black and white, the double sixes that by now you see in your dreams. You mean the other signs, the ones on fence posts and barn walls and the sides of buildings. No work here. Keep moving. We can't help you. They're hand-lettered mostly, boards nailed to posts, sometimes painted, sometimes just written in tar or in the dried black residue of 1,000 brushes dipped in whatever was available. The letters aren't pretty. The people who made them weren't trying for pretty, they were trying for clear. The panhandle towns have been absorbing migrant traffic for 3 years. The relief rolls are full. The school systems are straining. The wells that serve public water are depleted. And so the signs. And so the sheriff cars. And so the face that comes down over a diner window when your truck pulls in. Not mean, necessarily, just closed. The way a face goes closed when it's made a decision it doesn't want to examine too closely. You pull into Amarillo just after 10 in the morning. The temperature is 91 degrees and climbing. Amarillo in 1937 is a real city, a railroad city, a cattle shipping city, a city with brick buildings downtown and a movie theatre and a department store and a Woolworths with a lunch counter. It's not dying. Amarillo is one of the towns that has largely survived what the rest of the Panhandle hasn't, because it's a hub, because the railroad runs through it, because something about its location and its industry insulated it from the worst of it, which means it has the money to be annoyed at the people who don't. Your father drives through downtown without stopping. You look at the Woolworths as you pass. Through the plate glass window you can see a woman in a yellow dress drinking a soda at the counter. Just drinking a soda, cold glass, straw, ice. You can't see the ice from here, but you know there's ice because there's a Woolworths, and Woolworths have ice and you haven't had ice since. You can't actually remember since before you left. Dottie is looking at the Woolworths too. Don't, you say, not unkindly. She looks back at her notebook. You find a gas station on the west side of Amarillo with a hand-painted sign that says water free, and you pull in. A Mexican man in his 50s comes out, and he's already seen 30 trucks like yours today, and he knows what you need. So he waves you around to the side of the building where there's a spigot and a rough concrete basin. You fill your water can first, all 5 gallons. Then you fill the radiator. Then you let Biscuit drink from the basin. Then, and only then, you cup your hands under the spigot and drink yourself, long and slow, and the water is warm and it tastes the pipes it came through, and it is the best water you've drunk in 3 days. Dotty fills a mason jar and drinks, and then sits down in the thin stripe of shade against the side of the building and leans her head back against the cinder block and closes her eyes. She's 14, and she's been in a truck for 14 days and she hasn't complained once. You sit down next to her. "You okay?" you ask. "I'm fine." "You sure?" "Ray." She opens one eye. "I'm fine. Stop asking." A pause. "How much money's left?" she says. "Enough." "That's not a number." You tell her the number. You watch her do the same math you did this morning, and you watch her get to the same answer, and you watch her accept it the same way you accepted it. "Okay," she says. "Yeah." We get to California, though. Not a question. Not quite. "We get to California," you say. She closes her eye again. The cinder block wall is warm through her dress. Somewhere around the front of the building, your father is talking to the gas station man about the road ahead, asking the same questions everyone asks. You can hear the low murmur of their voices, nothing specific, the particular music of men discussing practical things. Herschel's Studebaker pulls in off the highway. He parks and gets out, and the woman who travels with him, Clara, 50, with a face like dry leather and eyes that miss very little, gets out too. She's carrying a cloth bag. "Found apples," she says, and holds up the bag. "Orchard south of town. Owner said take what's on the ground." They're small, bruised, half of them gone soft on one side. You take one. Dotty takes one. You don't say how good it is because it's not exactly good. It's an apple that had a hard life before it got to you. But it's fruit, and it's wet inside, and the sweetness hits something in you that you realise has been waiting for it. Biscuit gets one. "Road south of Tucumcari," Herschel says, settling his back against the Studebaker. "They're saying there's a flooding issue. Rio Pecos came up. There's a low spot on the road." "How bad?" "Passable. Just." He pauses. "Probably." Route 66 has a lot of probablys in it. You've learned to make peace with probably. You load back up. The water can is full. The radiator is full. The oil is where it is. The tyres are where they are. The crack in the block is where it is. You do a quick walk around the truck the way your father taught you, checking each tyre with your palm, checking that everything on the roof is still tied, checking the spare on the tailgate. Everything is where it should be, more or less. The road west of Amarillo becomes almost immediately a different proposition than the road east of Amarillo. The pavement gets thinner, the surface gets rougher. There are sections where the asphalt has broken along the edges and the shoulder is a 2-inch drop to hard packed dirt. And if you drift too far right coming around a curve at any speed, you'll lose your tyre. There are sections where the road repair crews have laid down fresh gravel over a bad spot, and the gravel hasn't been pressed in yet and it pops under your tyres like small caliber gunfire. And then there are the sections where there is no road improvement at all, where the road is what the road has been since 1926 when they designated this route, and in 11 years of Western Texas heat and Western Texas summer storms, the road has acquired a personality. The truck hits a pothole about 40 miles west of Amarillo that is deep enough that Dottie's head hits the roof. She doesn't yell. She just puts her hand on her head and breathes through her nose. Your father's jaw tightens. Biscuit scrambles from Dottie's lap to the floor and stays there. "Sorry," your father says. "It's fine, Dad." "Didn't see it." "I know. It's fine." He drives a little slower after that, which means arriving a little later. which means a little more gas because the engine runs longer at lower speeds, which actually uses more fuel than a steady highway pace. The math of this road is never in your favour. You cross into New Mexico just after noon. The sign says New Mexico, land of enchantment, and someone has spray painted beware under it, which you might find funny in a different life. Here you just note it as information. The Rio Pecos flooding that Herschel mentioned is real. You hit it at a low spot in the road about 15 miles into the state, where the road dips into a shallow valley, and the valley has collected last night's rain runoff. The water is brown and about 4 inches deep and spreads across both lanes. There are 6 other vehicles stopped ahead of you. A man is wading through it in bare feet, testing the depth, walking the line of where the road should be, which you can no longer see. He comes back to the edge and holds up 4 fingers, 4 inches roughly, maybe a little more in the middle. Your father looks at the water. The truck's running board is about 8 inches off the ground. The engine air intake is higher. The Model A has made it through worse than this, technically. The man who waded through it has started going through himself, one hand trailing in the water to feel the pavement edge, his car following him slowly. His engine doesn't die. He makes it to the other side, and the people on your side of the flood cheer. A short involuntary cheer, the kind that comes out of people who understand exactly how much rides on a thing like this. Your father pulls to the front and lines up. You get out. You wade in ahead of the truck, bare feet in the brown water, and the mud under your feet is soft and sucking and cold, and you walk the centre line the way the other man did, one arm stretched back to guide your father's truck. The water rises to just above your ankle at its deepest. The truck's radiator passes about 6 inches over your shoulder, the engine's heat baking down onto you as you wade. You feel the front bumper brush your back once and you step left instinctively. The truck clears the water on the other side. You stand in the road with mud between your toes and let out your breath. Dottie's face is in the window. She's counting something on her fingers and then she nods, like she was keeping track and the count came out right. You get back in the truck. Your feet leave brown prints on the floor. Good, your father says. It's the word he uses for things that were close and came out right. Just the single word, delivered flat. It means everything. Herschel Studebaker makes it through behind you. Clara doesn't get out to help guide. She sits in the passenger seat with her arms folded and her eyes on the road ahead, and her expression of a person who has decided not to look at the thing that could go wrong. You eat lunch on the road. This is not unusual. Lunch on the road is a piece of cornbread if you have it, which today you do because Clara gave your family a small piece wrapped in paper this morning, a strip of dried beef that you bought at a general store in Shamrock which cost 12 cents for a quarter pound, and has the texture of leather and the flavour of salt and whatever animal it used to be, which is probably beef but might be horse, and you've made your peace with not knowing. A swallow of water each, careful and counted. That's lunch. Dottie eats her cornbread with the focused patience of someone making the experience last. She doesn't rush food. You've noticed this about her on the road. She eats slowly and with attention, like eating is something you should be present for, which out here it sort of is. Your father doesn't eat. He's done this sometime since you left, gone quiet and gone inward and stopped eating for part of a day. You used to push it. You've stopped pushing it. You've learned that the way Earl Calloway processes the road is his own business, and that he's still driving and still making good decisions and still checking the engine every morning with steady hands, and that's what matters. You save him a strip of dried beef wrapped in paper and put it in his shirt pocket while he drives, not saying anything. He doesn't say anything either. But he puts his hand over the pocket once, briefly. The road through New Mexico climbs, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, but the engine notices it. You start having to go down to second gear on some of the grades, and on one long climb the radiator temperature gauge climbs with the road, and you keep your eye on it, watching the needle ease toward the red. Should I? You start. Not yet, your father says, watching the gauge too. The needle climbs. You're at the top of the grade. The road crests and starts down again, and the engine relaxes, and the needle comes back from the red zone slowly, slowly, and stops a hair below danger. Good, your father says. You start to breathe again. This is the thing about driving this car on this road in this heat. The whole thing is a negotiation. The engine, the road, the temperature, the available water, the available time before dark when you absolutely have to stop, because driving Route 66 at night in this car with its one working headlight is asking for problems you don't have the money for. Every mile is a transaction. Every grade and every junction and every fuel stop is a new term in an ongoing deal between your family and a car that did not ask to be here and is doing its job anyway. You stop mid-afternoon to let the engine cool. You pull off the road onto a stretch of hardpan next to a dry arroyo, and you kill the engine, and you wait. This is standard practice. In the extreme heat of a July afternoon in New Mexico, the Model A needs about 20 minutes of rest every few hours, not because it will break immediately if you don't give it, though it might, but because the cumulative heat builds up in ways that crack things and warp things and make the crack in the block worse, and you have 1,200 miles to go and the car needs to get there. You get out and stretch. Your back has the particular stiffness of ours in one position on a bouncing bench seat. Your lower spine having absorbed every pothole like a slow conversation with a doctor about your future. You walk around the truck twice, just moving, just feeling your legs remember what legs are for. Dottie gets out, and she and Biscuit disappear behind a scrub cedar about 50 yards off the road, which is the only privacy available on Route 66, the privacy of a shrub in a landscape with no other shrubs. Your father gets out too. He walks to the edge of the arroyo and stands there looking into it, which is empty, which has been empty for years probably. The white bleached stones in the bottom looking like they've been there since before anyone was keeping track. "Dad," you say, coming up beside him. He looks at you. "We're doing fine," you say. He looks back at the arroyo. "I know what I'm doing," he says. "I know you do. I know what this looks like." He means the road, the car, the dried beef, the water counted by the cup. "I know what it looks like. Dad, I just need you to know," he says, and his voice is level, it's always level, "that I know what I'm doing. I had reasons. The farm was gone. California is..." He stops, starts again. "There's work in California." "I know. Real work, not relief work, actual wages." He turns and looks at you, and his eyes are clear and steady, and there's something in them you don't see very often, which is that he needs you to believe this. "You'll see. When we get there." You hold his gaze. "I believe you," you say, and the thing is, you mostly do. Because the alternative, that there's nothing in California, that the pamphlets were lies, that all of this road and all of this heat and all of this calculating and rationing is heading toward nothing. You can't carry that thought. You pick it up sometimes at 3 a.m, and then you put it down again because it's too heavy for the train. The engine cools. You get back in the truck. Dottie comes back with Biscuit. The road continues west. The afternoon light changes the way afternoon light always changes in the high desert. It goes from white and brutal to gold and almost gentle. The shadows get long. The colours that were washed out in the noon heat come back. The red of the rock formations to the south, the sage green of the scrub, the blue of the sky deepening at the edges into something almost purple. You pass through a town of about 200 people whose name is on the map but which barely merits the name in person. A grain elevator, a gas station, a general store, a church, and about 20 houses arranged in a loose grid on the east side of the highway as if they wanted to be ready to leave quickly if necessary. 3 men are sitting in front of the general store. All 3 of them watch your truck pass without any change of expression. Just watching. Not hostile. Not welcoming. Just the particular regard that people have for a thing that is passing through and will be gone. You make Tucumcari just before 6 in the evening. Tucumcari is a Route 66 town in the way that only a few towns are Route 66 towns, meaning it has organised itself around the road and the traffic on the road in a way that makes the road part of its identity. There are motels, though motel is a generous word for most of them. Small whitewashed stucco buildings arranged around a courtyard with a single light bulb on a pole and a hand-lettered sign saying 25 cents a night. There are diners. There are gas stations that clearly do a real business, that have more than one pump and a mechanic on duty and tyres for sale. There's a camp at the east edge of town where the highway pulls back from the main street, and there's a flat cleared area next to a dry wash that's been used as a camping spot by migrants for so long that it's essentially an established institution. There are maybe 20 vehicles already there when you pull in. The smell is the same smell as every camp. The layered smell you've memorised by now. But there's also the smell of cooking. Someone has a real fire going with actual food on it. Beans probably. And the smell of beans cooking is a smell that reaches something very old and very basic in your stomach and makes it clench. You park, you kill the engine. The silence after the engine dies is, as always, a small luxury. The engine of a 1928 Model A with a cracked block is not a quiet sound. The silence that follows is something to sit in for a moment. "Good day," your father says. He means it in the flat accounting sense. The car made it. Nobody got hurt. You covered ground. Good day. Good day. You agree. Herschel Studebaker pulls in behind you. You climb out and your body starts its nightly inventory of what hurts. Your left shoulder, where it pressed against the door frame all day. Your lower back. Your right knee, which has been doing something strange for a week that you're not going to examine too closely yet. Your hands are red and slightly swollen from the heat and the various handlings of the day. The hand pump for the tyres, the radiator cap, the water can, bracing yourself in corners. You help Dottie spread the sleeping setup. This is the nightly ritual, a piece of canvas over the truck bed for your father and Dottie, weighted down at the corners with stones, the blanket that goes under Dottie because the metal of the truck bed is worse for sleeping than anything else, the canvas piece you take under the truck, the small rolled-up canvas that serves as a pillow. You do all of this by practiced habit, no words needed. You've done it 20-something nights now. The efficiency of it is almost peaceful. The body knowing the sequence, the hands finding the corners in the low light. Biscuit does 3 circles on his spot in the truck bed and lies down. The 3 circles thing has not varied once in 20-something nights. You don't know why dogs do this. You've never asked. It seems important to Biscuit. "Hungry?" Dottie asks. "I'm fine." She looks at you the way she looked at you when you asked if she was okay at the gas station. The look that says you are both doing the same thing, which is being fine in a way that costs something. We'll eat, you say. I'll go see about those beans. The beans belong to a family from Muskogee, a woman named Edna, maybe 40, wearing a flour sack dress, and a face that would be severe if it weren't for her eyes, which are remarkably kind, the kind of kindness that's been tested and has held, and she has about 4 times more beans on the fire than her family needs, which is a deliberate act of generosity in a situation where generosity is an act of will. You offer to split what's left of your cornbread with her. She looks at the cornbread. She looks at you. She looks at Dottie, who is standing a little behind you, holding Biscuit by the collar, and at your father, who has not pushed himself forward in a way that would make this moment about him. Come eat, she says. The beans are pinto beans with a piece of fat back in them, boiled until they're so soft they've almost become one thing, seasoned with salt and pepper and something else you can't identify that might be wild onion. You eat them from tin cups sitting on the ground around Edna's fire, and you don't eat fast and you don't eat too much, and you wipe the cup with a piece of cornbread and eat the cornbread, and you sit for a few minutes in the ordinary miracle of having eaten something hot. Where you heading? Edna asks. Bakersfield, your father says. We heard there's work. We heard the same. She stirs the remaining beans. We're from Muskogee, tobacco farm. Land was all right through the drought, but the price went down so far we couldn't make the mortgage. There's a particular way that people on Route 66 tell their stories. Direct. No self-pity that you can see, though you know it's in there. Just the facts of how you got from there to here given as information, the way you'd give weather information or road information. Useful data. Bakersfield's good if you know people, says a man across the fire. He came up while you were eating, you weren't sure when. Thin man, maybe 35, with the specific thinness of someone who's been working too hard on too little food for about 6 months. My cousin's there. Says the camps are full, but there's work in the orchards. Picking season. What do they pay? Your father asks. 75 cents a day if you're fast. There's a moment around the fire. 75 cents a day. That's the number that brought 250,000 people down this road. 75 cents a day in California. Before the drought, before the banks, a farmer in Oklahoma might make more than that on a good week. But a good week was, well, it was a while ago now. Heard they're cutting the rate, the thin man says. Supply and demand. Too many pickers, not enough fruit. They were paying $1.20 in 34. Still, your father says. Still, the thin man agrees. The fire settles. Someone has a guitar somewhere in the camp, and you hear it start up about 20 yards away. Something slow and not quite identifiable. The kind of playing that's not showing off but just filling the dark space around the player. Herschel sits down next to you. He has his tin cup and he holds it on his knee and looks into the fire for a while. Got a letter from my daughter, he says. From before I left. She's in San Diego. Married a man from San Diego. He pauses. Good man, she says. I've never met him. You going to look her up? I'm going to Bakersfield first. Work for the summer. Save enough for a bus ticket down to San Diego. He looks at the fire. If the Studebaker makes it to Bakersfield, it'll make it. He makes a sound that might be a laugh. Based on what? Based on it making it this far, he's quiet. The guitar continues somewhere in the dark, the melody wandering. How old are you? He asks. 19. He looks at you in a way you can't quite read. Not pity, not condescension. Something closer to recognition. the way an older person sometimes looks at you and sees not what you are but what you're going to be, and thinks something about that. "You're going to be all right," he says. "I know," you say, "and you don't mean it yet, but you're practicing." He nods. He gets up and goes back to his own camp, and you stay by the fire a little longer, listening to the guitar and the low murmur of 30 families settling in for the night, and the far-off sound of a coyote somewhere in the dark flat land to the north, and the occasional hiss and pop of the fire. This is Route 66 at night in the summer of 1937. The cars are cooling, the children are sleeping, the adults are sitting in the dark with their calculations and their hopes, and the specific exhaustion of people doing a hard thing for reasons they still believe in, and the guitar in the dark, and the coyote, and the stars so thick out here away from town lights that they feel low enough to touch. You lie down under the truck. The ground is warm, radiating back the day's heat. The truck's undercarriage above you smells of oil and hot metal. Somewhere in the scrub, a cricket starts up. Tomorrow you cross the rest of New Mexico. Tomorrow you hit Arizona. The road through Arizona is long, and it crosses the Painted Desert, and it crosses the Petrified Forest area, and it eventually gets to the Colorado River, and then you're in California. 3 days, maybe 4. $11 and some change. You close your eyes. The cricket is very determined. You sleep. Morning comes the way it always comes on Route 66 in July, which is without apology and earlier than you're ready for. There's no gentle awakening out here, no gradual brightening of the bedroom window, no moment of comfortable half-consciousness before the day asserts itself. What there is, the hard ground under the thin canvas, which has communicated itself to every bone in your body through the night with the patient persistence of something that has a point to make. What there is, the smell, which is the first thing every morning, always the smell, the dust and the grease and the bodies and the cold ash of last night's fires. What there is, the sound of the camp starting up at first light, because everyone on Route 66 has learned the same thing, which is that the hours between 5 and 9 in the morning are the only merciful hours the road offers, and you waste them at your cost. You're already awake when the first engine turns over. Your body has learned to sleep in shifts, the way a guard sleeps, lightly, partially, always with one part of the machinery still running. You lie under the truck in the grey pre-dawn and you listen. Biscuit's tail hitting the truck bed above you. Tap, tap, tap. He knows you're awake. He always knows. Your father's voice, low, already talking to himself or to the engine or to the road or to God or to your mother, who died of dust pneumonia in February of 36, and who your father talks to sometimes in the early mornings when he thinks no one is listening. You've never told him you hear it. You will never tell him. You ease out from under the truck. Your back has a specific complaint this morning, a deep-set ache along the left side of your lumbar spine that tells you the ground was harder last night than the night before, or that your body is doing the arithmetic of accumulated nights and presenting you with the bill. You stretch standing up, hands pressed to your lower back, head tilted up toward the pale sky, and something pops in your spine that feels like relief and sounds like something breaking, and is probably both. The camp around you is the same camp as last night, in the same way that the road today is the same road as yesterday, which is to say it is entirely the same and entirely different simultaneously. The same vehicles in the same general positions, but people moving now, children appearing from canvas and cab and under vehicle, the fires being coaxed back to life, the water cans being checked, the ritual. Herschel is already up, crouched at the Studebaker's front end with a flashlight, though there's light enough now to see by. He's got the hood propped, and he's running his hand along the underside of the engine with the practiced touch of a man who knows machines the way some men know animals. By feel, by sound, by the specific way a good one behaves versus one that's telling you something you go over. Kingpin, he says without looking up. Bad? Getting there, he stands. I've got maybe another 300-400 miles before it starts to really go. By then I'll be close enough. He says it with the tone of Route 66 arithmetic. Enough is a different number out here than it is anywhere else. Enough means makes it. Good enough. Not good, but enough. You check your own truck. The ritual. Radiator cap, oil dipstick, tyre pressures, the crack in the block still wrapped in its electrical tape that has begun to look frayed at the edges in a way you note and file and don't mention to your father. The left front tyre holds the air you put in it yesterday. The right rear bulge looks the same. Same. You'll take same. Your father comes round the back of the truck with the water can. He hands it to you. You take a long swallow carefully and hand it back, and he drinks the same careful way. We're eating this morning, he says. You look at him. Proper, he says. In town, the diner. Dad, the money. We've been eating cold cornbread and dried beef for 4 days. His voice is level, careful. We're eating breakfast in a diner, 1 meal, then we drive. You understand this is not negotiable in the way that the engine temperature gauge is not negotiable. There are things a person needs that are not gas and oil and water, and your father knows this, and he is trying to give you one of them. Okay, you say. The Bluebird Diner is on the main road through Tucumcari, and it is exactly what Herschel said it was. A low building with a blue-painted door and a hand-lettered sign in the window that says open 5 a.m. and another one that says breakfast all day, which is the 3 most beautiful words in the English language at 6:15 in the morning. You push through the door. The smell. Coffee. Real coffee. The sharp black smell of it that hits you somewhere between the nose and the memory and makes you think of a kitchen you used to have, of a stove that worked, of mornings when breakfast was not something you negotiated. Bacon grease, toast, the slight sweetness of pancake batter. These smells are so ordinary and so far from where you've been for the last 2 weeks that for a moment you just stand there in the doorway and breathe them in. The diner is about half full. Counter with 8 stools, 6 booths along the wall, a small table by the window, men in work clothes, a couple in what looks like their travelling best, Sunday shirts worn on a Monday, 2 older women sharing something from a plate and not talking much. The comfortable silence of people who have been having breakfast together for years. A woman comes out from behind the counter. She's maybe 40, with a practical haircut and an apron that has seen serious use, and eyes that go from your face to your father's to Dottie's in about a second, doing the calculation that everyone in Route 66 towns does automatically now. Reading the story of a family in the cut of their clothes and the dust on their boots, and the specific way they stand in the doorway like they're not quite sure they're allowed in. Her name is Nadine. You know this because it's written on her apron in the red thread. She looks at you for a moment. Then she says, "Come on in, sit anywhere." You sit at the counter, all 3 of you in a row, Dottie in the middle. You fold your hands on the counter, which is clean and faintly sticky with the tackiness of a surface that gets wiped down 20 times a day and still accumulates something ineffable. Nadine puts menus in front of you. You look at the menu. Breakfast, eggs and toast, 20 cents. Short stack, 15 cents. Full breakfast, eggs, bacon, toast, coffee, 35 cents. Your father looks at the menu for a moment. Then he puts it down. 3 full breakfasts, he says, and 1 for my dog if you've got scraps. Nadine writes it on her pad. She doesn't comment on the dog. She's worked a Route 66 diner long enough to have a system for most things, and the system for families like yours appears to be coffee first, questions never. She pours coffee. You wrap both hands around the cup. It's hot. The heat goes through your palms and up your arms and does something to the fatigue that no amount of sleep on hard ground has managed. You take a sip. It is not the best coffee you've ever had. It is the best thing you've drunk in 2 weeks. Dottie wraps her hands around her cup the same way. She looks at it rather than drinking it for a moment, the way she does with food out here, attending to it, being present for it. Your father drinks his straight down about halfway before setting it back. The food comes fast, the way diner food comes when the cook is good and the morning rush is settled. Plates warm from the line, eggs over easy exactly as you asked, bacon that's been in the pan long enough to be crisp without being burnt, toast from bread that's 2 days old but has been saved by the heat of the broiler, and a small dish on the side with 3 small dishes of jam. Strawberry jam. You spread it on your toast and eat it, and you don't say anything about it. You just eat it. The sweetness of it, and the slight grainy texture of the bread, and the snap of the bacon, and the salt of the eggs, and the hot second cup of coffee that Nadine pours without being asked. The other people at the counter don't give you much trouble. The man 2 stools down is a trucker. You can tell by the way he eats, fast and methodical, with the air of someone who's eaten in 100 diners and has sorted them all into categories of okay and not okay, and this one is okay. And he doesn't look at you more than once. The women in the booth are talking about someone's relative in Santa Fe. Nobody's paying attention to you in the particular pointed way that means you shouldn't be here. But then a man comes in. He's maybe 55, heavy through the shoulders, wearing a khaki shirt with a badge on it that says QE, County Sheriff's Office in an arc above a star. He's not on duty, or anyway not in a marked car, you didn't see one outside. But the badge is there and he knows it's there and he wears it the way men wear things that give them permission to assess. He sits at the far end of the counter. He orders coffee. He looks at the counter, then at the mirror behind the counter that shows the whole diner, and in the mirror he looks at you. Not long. Not threatening exactly. Just the look of a man who is noting the presence of something in his field of vision and deciding how to categorize it. He looks at you for maybe 3 seconds. Then he looks back at his coffee. You eat your eggs. But something has changed in the air of the diner, some slight shift of pressure that you and your father, and probably Dottie, all feel simultaneously. The way you feel weather pressure changes before they register as anything visible. You all eat a little faster than you were eating. You all drink your coffee down rather than sitting with it. Your father gets out his wallet, not the cloth bag, the regular wallet that has very little in it, because that's what you show people in diners, and puts money on the counter. Exact money. No fumbling. He leaves a nickel tip, which you see and which costs something. You stand. Dottie stands. Your father stands. The sheriff's deputy looks up from his coffee. He doesn't say anything. He just watches you file out. The door swings closed behind you. Outside, the morning air is already warm and smells of dust and exhaust. You stand on the sidewalk for a moment in the ordinary aftermath of having been somewhere and having been fine, which is its own kind of exhaustion. Good breakfast, Dottie says. Yeah, your father says. You load back into the truck. West of Tucumcari, New Mexico opens up in a way that feels like an exhale. The land gets even flatter for a stretch, the sky getting bigger in proportion, and then it starts to roll and break into the beginning of something more complicated. Arroyos and dry washes, the occasional butte standing alone on the plain like a thing that was left behind when everything else moved. The colour changes, less the bleached bone colour of the Texas panhandle, and more red and orange and the rich dark brown of iron-bearing rock. The kind of colour that looks painted on but is just geology. Just the honest face of a land that's been here a long time. The road climbs. Santa Rosa comes and goes. The Sinclair station Herschel mentioned. The Mexican man, older, who pumps your gas and says, without being asked, that the road's good all the way to Albuquerque, and when your father thanks him he says de nada, in a way that means something more than nothing. Dottie adds a drawing to the notebook. The butte north of the road, the flat plain, the line of fence posts running west. She draws quickly, the lines sure and without hesitation, and you watch her hand move and you think about what a person does with a talent like that when the talent has no obvious application to survival on Route 66 in 1937. You think, later, when they're in California, when they're settled, when survival is no longer the primary calculation. Later. The engine sounds different by midday. You notice it first. A very slight change in the rhythm of the cylinder firing, almost too small to be sure of. But you've been listening to this engine for 2 weeks and you know its sound the way you know a person's breathing. And this is slightly off. You don't say anything immediately. You give it 10 miles. On the 11th mile your father says, "You hear that?" "Yeah." A pause. "Third cylinder," you say, or close to it. He listens, drives. "Fouled plug, maybe." "Maybe." "Fouled spark plug." The plugs in this engine are old. You haven't replaced them since Oklahoma because replacement plugs cost a dime each, and you have 4 cylinders, and a dime times 4 is 40 cents, which is also 2 gallons of gas, which is 40 miles, which is a decision. You've been nursing what you have, which is what you do with everything. "Next town," your father says. The next town is Moriarty, New Mexico, which is another diner and gas station town with a mechanic behind the gas station who looks at the engine for about 30 seconds and says yes. One of the plugs is fouled and probably a second one going, and it'll be 25 cents to pull and clean them. 25 cents. You look at your father. Your father looks at the mechanic. "Clean them both," he says. The mechanic takes 20 minutes. While he works, you sit in the shade of the station's overhang on an upturned crate and watch the road and drink water from the can and don't talk about the 25 cents. It comes out of the money bag. The bag is lighter for it. The math updates itself in the back of your head automatically the way a ledger updates. The plug's cleaned, the engine fires with its proper rhythm again, even and steady the way it should. The change is immediate and you feel it through the floor of the cab like a conversation resolved. "Good," your father says. "Albuquerque in the late afternoon is the largest city you've been through since Amarillo, and it's different in the way that cities built in different landscapes are different. Adobe and sandstone and flat roofs, the Rio Grande visible from the higher sections of road, cottonwood trees along the river channel that are shockingly, almost aggressively green against the dry everything else. There are traffic lights, there are department stores, there are cars that are not held together with prayer and electrical tape. You don't stop in Albuquerque. You don't stop because you don't need gas yet, and because Albuquerque has the kind of city energy that makes you want to keep moving. The feeling of a place that has places to be and is not interested in watching you be uncertain about whether you're allowed to be in them. But you drive through slowly enough to look. Dottie's looking. Her notebook is in her lap, but she's not drawing. She's just watching the city go by with an expression you can't quite read. Something between hunger and assessment. "Big," she says. "Yeah. Do you think—" She stops. "What?" She shakes her head. She picks up the notebook. She starts drawing. You don't push it. West of Albuquerque the road climbs again, more seriously this time, up into the sandier mountains and then over them and down the other side, and this section of Route 66 is a different road than the flat Texas and New Mexico plains. It's narrow and it curves, and there are sections where the drop off the edge is real and significant, and your father's hands go very steady on the wheel and very slow and very deliberate. The engine labours on the climb. The temperature gauge climbs with the road. You watch it with the particular attention of someone who has only one thing they really need from this needle, which is that it not reach the red. Herschel's Studebaker is behind you on the climb. You can see it in the mirror, the Studebaker's slightly wobbling rear end visible on the switchbacks. Clara visible in the passenger seat with her arms folded in her position of determined non-engagement with things that could go wrong. You crest the mountains, and New Mexico falls away behind you, and Arizona begins. This is the thing about Route 66 that the maps don't tell you, that the pamphlets definitely don't tell you, that you can only understand by driving it. Every state line is a real threshold, not just legal or political. Something in the land shifts, something in the air shifts, the light changes, the smells change. Oklahoma to Texas was the land getting drier, flatter, the sky getting bigger in a way that felt like the world expanding outward until it reached a limit. Texas to New Mexico was the colour changing, the rock coming up through the thinning soil, the land starting to say things in geology instead of agriculture. New Mexico to Arizona is, everything gets more serious. The painted desert begins before you're ready for it. You come around a curve about 30 miles into Arizona and it's just there. Ahead of you and on both sides and going on further than you can track in any direction, the banded cliffs and mesas in colours that don't seem like they should belong to dirt. Reds so deep they look almost purple. Oranges that shift to pink in the angle of the late afternoon sun. Whites and greys and the occasional dark stripe of some intrusion you don't know the name for. It looks like something someone painted on the inside of your eyelids. "Oh," Dottie says quietly. "Just, oh." Your father slows the truck without being asked to, the way he slows for things that deserve to be seen. You sit there for a moment, all three of you, and look. Biscuit's head is out the window and his nose is going fast, reading this landscape in a frequency you don't have access to, his ears up and his tail doing something cautious and interested. The land here has been doing this for a very long time. The colours are the ages of the earth laid open, each band a different era, tens of millions of years stacked up and then cut sideways by water and wind so you can read them from the road like a very old book. People lived here before Europeans arrived. People live here now. The road cuts through land that the Navajo Nation has called home since before anyone was counting, and on both sides of the highway there are occasional indications of this presence. A distant hogan, a herd of sheep on a hillside tended by a figure too far away to make out, and the road goes through all of it with the particular indifference of a road, which is the indifference of the people who built it, which is its own kind of story. But right now, in this moment, you are just a 19-year-old from the Oklahoma Panhandle, looking at the painted desert for the first time, and your chest is doing something that you weren't prepared for. You've been so focused on the mechanics of surviving this road, the water, the money, the engine, the distance, that you've been looking at the road and not what the road goes through. And what the road goes through, you now realize, is some of the most extraordinary landscape on Earth. This doesn't fix anything. The math is still the math. The bag against your ribs is still lighter than it was yesterday morning. Your back still aches and the plug is still maybe going and the crack in the block is still there. But for a minute, you stop doing the math. "Dad," you say. "I see it," your father says. He does see it. Something has changed in his face, some small easing of the set jaw and the careful eyes, and he's looking at the painted desert with an expression you haven't seen since before your mother died, since before the bank man came, since before things required the expression he wears most of the time now, which is the expression of a man with the steering wheel in both hands and his eyes on the road. He looks like himself for a minute. You drive through the painted desert as the sun drops lower, and the colours change as the light changes, and you are moving at 35 miles an hour through something that will look completely different in an hour, and you will never see exactly this again. And you know it. You know it the way you know the things you're going to carry with you out of this road. And you try to look at everything. Dottie is drawing. Her hand is moving fast. "Don't miss it trying to draw it," you say. "I can do both," she says, not looking up. She probably can. You camp west of the painted desert, off the road at a flat spot behind a low red rock rise that blocks the wind. There's no camp here, no other vehicles, just you and Herschel and Clara and the Muskogee family and one other car that's been travelling roughly in your convoy all day. A 32 Plymouth with a Kansas plate and a young couple inside who don't talk much, but who always park within sight of the other vehicles, understanding without discussing it that the arrangement is mutual. You eat cold. There's nothing left to cook. You have half a loaf of bread that's been in the truck for 2 days and a can of pork and beans that you open with a knife and eat straight from the can. Cold. The gelatinous grey beans with their slightly sweet sauce, which is not a pleasant food but is food, which is all the criteria you have right now. Dottie eats hers without comment. Your father eats the bread. He takes the strip of dried beef from his shirt pocket where it's been all day, and eats that too. You give Biscuit the last of the canned goods, scraped with your finger around the inside of the can. "Good dog," Dottie tells him. He wags. Clara comes over with a small pot of something she made on her camp stove, a tiny 2-burner kerosene thing she carries in the Studebaker, like a declaration of civilization. It's a potato soup, thin but hot, and she pours it into your cups without making a thing of it, and you drink it, and it is good. Actually good. The salt and the warmth of it reaching something that the cold beans couldn't. "Thank you," your father says. His voice has something in it that it doesn't usually have, which is that he means it in more layers than the words. Clara nods. She goes back to Herschel. The night here is different from the camp nights in Texas and New Mexico. There's no town nearby, no truck traffic on the highway to speak of, and the sky so clear and so dark that the stars are not just there but present. The Milky Way a visible band, the kind of sky that city people have never seen, and that you grew up under, and that you somehow stopped seeing at the same time the land started dying. And now here it is again, the same stars over the painted desert that were over the farm in Oklahoma when things were good, the same stars. You sit on the running board for a while after everyone else is settled. Your back against the truck door, your feet in the dust looking up. The night is making sounds. Crickets, the same kind as everywhere. Something that might be a small owl, a short repeating note from a rock formation 50 yards off. The light pop of cooling metal from the truck's engine. Your father's breathing from the cab above you, slow and regular, which means he's asleep, which is good, which is something. Herschel comes and sits on a rock nearby. He's got his coffee tin. He offers it. You shake your head. You want to be able to sleep. Arizona tomorrow, he says. We're already in Arizona. The hard part, Flagstaff, then the Mojave. He says Mojave the way people say it on this road, which is with the particular respect you give to things that have killed people. Heat'll be real tomorrow, 110 through the Mojave, maybe more. We've got water. Make sure of it. He pauses. I crossed it in August of 36. Temperature gauge on the Studebaker went all the way to red, and I drove it that way for 6 miles because there was no shade and stopping meant dying. He says this conversationally, without drama. You want to cross it in the early morning, before 7 if you can, start before dawn. Okay? I mean it. The road through the Mojave in the afternoon of July is not. It's not forgiving. You note this the way you note everything Herschel tells you, in a mental ledger that has become one of your primary navigational tools on this road. He's been through twice. He knows things that can only be learned by having been through, and he shares them without ceremony, without paternalism, just hands them over the way you hand someone a tool they need. The California border, you say. A pause? What about it? I've heard things. Herschel is quiet for a moment. What did you hear? That they're turning people back. Inspectors. At the line. He looks at the rock he's sitting on, then up at you. Agricultural inspections, he says. Formally. They're checking vehicles for invasive plant species, citrus diseases, that kind of thing. He says these last words with the tone of someone handling something carefully. Formally. And informally. Informally, the state of California has decided that 250,000 migrants showing up and needing housing and work and relief services is a problem they'd rather solve at the border. He pauses. They can't turn you back legally. Not if you're a citizen. The Constitution says they can't. But they can hold you up for a long time at the inspection station. They can look at your vehicle and decide it's not roadworthy. They can look at your money and suggest you don't have enough to support yourselves. He looks at you. They can make it very difficult. But they can't actually stop us. Legally, no. A pause. They also can't legally do most of what they do. The El Monte sheriff arrested a busload of migrants in 36 for the crime of having no visible means of support. The law they used was a vagrancy law from 1860. He pauses again. The ACLU got them out. Eventually. Eventually. How do you get through, you ask? You have money. If you have money, you're fine. He looks at you. How much have you got? You tell him. He's quiet. That might be enough, he says carefully. They're looking for people with nothing. Under $5 sometimes gets you turned back. Over 10 and you're usually fine. A pause. Usually. $11 was the number this morning. It's 9 and change now after the diner and the spark plugs. 9 and change. We'll be fine, you say. Herschel nods. Neither of you says anything else about it. You lie down under the truck. The owl makes its short note in the dark. You're doing the math again. You sleep eventually, before dawn. Herschel was right about before dawn, and your father was already awake before you stirred, which means he was doing the same calculation you were, and the conclusion was the same. Mojave before the heat gets serious. You're on the road by 4:30. The sky is black and the stars are still there, and the Model A's single working headlight throws a cone of yellow light down the road that seems absurdly small against the dark, a lantern in a large room. Herschel is behind you. The Kansas Plymouth is behind him. Flagstaff is asleep when you go through. A few lit windows in the houses, a gas station with its lights on, which you stop at, which cost you $1.02 for 7 gallons and a quart of oil. The man at the pump is young, maybe your age, and he has the particular look of someone working a 4 a.m. shift that he did not choose. He fills your tank without small talk, and hands back your change, and you take it and count it, and put it in the bag, and you're back on the road. The road west of Flagstaff drops. It drops dramatically, quickly, the high pine forests of northern Arizona giving way to lower scrub, and then to nothing much, and the temperature rises with the dropping elevation in a direct and honest way, the way a stove heats when you add fuel. By 6 o'clock, the thermometer your father keeps hooked to the sun visor reads 85. By 7, it reads 92. The Mojave Desert is its own country. You've heard people describe it. You've read about it in the pamphlet your father got from the county extension office when they were putting together the California plan, which described the route briefly, and which said, in plain extension office language, desert crossing should be made in early morning or evening hours. Carry adequate water. Check cooling system. You've heard Herschel describe it. None of this is adequate. The Mojave is, there's no other word for it, absolute. It is the most absolute landscape you've ever been in, which is saying something for someone raised on the Oklahoma Panhandle. The Oklahoma Panhandle is empty. Yes, but it has the ghost of what it used to be, the layered memory of grass and crops and human effort. The Mojave has no such ghost. The Mojave has simply never been anything other than what it is, which is a furnace with a road through it. The creosote bushes are spaced exactly far enough apart that they never touch, each one maintaining its territory through a chemical process that kills competing plants in its radius. You've heard about this. The spacing gives the desert a surreal regularity, like someone arranged it, like the desert is orderly and intentional in its severity. Miles and miles of creosote bushes in their regular spacing, and between them the pale caliche hardpan and the occasional flash of iron-red rock, and above it all the sky going from the orange of early morning to a white that's almost painful by 8 o'clock. The temperature gauge on your father's sun visor reads 101 degrees at 8:15. Your father is driving at 30 miles an hour, not slower, because slower means the engine runs longer and generates more heat. Not faster, because faster means the engine works harder and generates more heat. 30 miles an hour is the number he found, and he's holding it with the precision of a surgeon, the speedometer needle hovering between 28 and 32. The water can. You've been thinking about the water can since Herschel's warning last night. You have about 3 gallons. The radiator, if it boils, will need about 1 gallon to top up. That leaves 2 gallons for drinking, which for 3 people in 100-degree heat for what you estimate is 4 or 5 hours of driving through the Mojave is tight. Manageable, but tight. You ration it. 4 ounces per person every 45 minutes. You time it by the clock on the dashboard, the clock that still works, one of the only original instruments on the truck that still works correctly. At 8:15, 4 ounces each. At 9 o'clock, 4 ounces each. You measure it into a tin cup and hand it round, the cup sweating in the heat immediately, the water already warm. Dottie drinks her 4 ounces without comment. Your father drinks his with one hand on the wheel. Biscuit. You look at the dog, who is on the floor now, which is cooler than the seat, his tongue out and his sides moving rapidly. You pour a little water into the cupped lid of the can for him. He laps it immediately. Looks up. You put a little more. "He'll be okay," Dottie says, watching. "He'll be okay," you agree. The engine runs clean. The temperature gauge climbs in the morning heat, the needle going from its normal running position toward the caution zone, and you watch it with the peripheral vision of someone who has learned to watch multiple things at once, the way you learn to drive the fence line while watching the sky, the way your father taught you to hear the difference between a healthy engine and one beginning to fail. It climbs to 2 marks below the red and stays there. 2 marks below. Holding. Outside Williams, Arizona, there's a section of road where the asphalt is heaved in the heat, and there are ridges running across the road at angles, and hitting them at 30 miles an hour produces a rhythmic shudder through the whole truck that makes the dishes in the back rattle, and makes biscuits scramble for footing, and makes the cracked block the one thought in your mind for about 30 seconds until the heaved section ends and the road smooths again. You look at your father. "Held," he says. "Yeah." Needles, California, is 200 miles west of Flagstaff. Somewhere before Needles, the road crosses the Colorado River, and then you're in California, which is the goal, which is the thing on the far end of all of this arithmetic. But before Needles, there's Kingman, Arizona, and before Kingman, there's the section of road through Seligman and Peach Springs and Truxton, where the road runs alongside the Santa Fe railway tracks, and occasional trains go by in the other direction, massive and indifferent, the wind they push ahead of them rocking the truck sideways. You reach Kingman at 11 in the morning. The temperature is 109 degrees. You stop at the first gas station. The man at the pump looks at your truck the way mechanics look at things that have been brought to them as a fait accompli. This is what there is. Do something with it. "Radiator needs checking," he says. "It's been holding. It's been holding at what it's used to. Between here and Needles, it'll meet new things." He looks at the sun visor thermometer, which you've brought out of the truck to show him. "I can put an additive in the coolant, $1.50, raises the boiling point. $1.50. You do the math. You're at $7.12. $1.50 for the additive, $1 for gas. That leaves you at $4.62. $4.62 to get to California and find work." "Put it in," Father says. The mechanic puts in the additive, checks the hoses, checks the fan belt, which is cracking at the edges, in a way he notes, and you note, and neither of you says out loud. He tops up the radiator. He checks the oil. "How much for the fan belt?" you ask quietly, while your father is around the other side of the truck. 60 cents for one that'll last, 30 for a salvage. You look at the belt. "Salvage," as you say, he puts in the salvage belt. It's in the, you don't tell your father. You'll tell him later, when there's less to think about. West of Kingman, the road climbs again before dropping toward the Colorado. You go through the Sitgreaves Pass, which is the kind of road that made the early automobile tourists write about Route 66 as an adventure. Because it is an adventure in the sense that it requires you to be making good decisions at every moment. The road is narrow, and it climbs in switchbacks, and on the inside of the switchback, the cliff face is about 4 feet from your driver's side mirror, and on the outside of the switchback there is nothing. There is air. There is the long drop to the valley floor. Your father takes it at 15 miles an hour. Nobody speaks during the pass. The engine runs fine. The new fan belt runs fine. The temperature gauge stays steady on the long climb, which is either the additive or luck, or the fact that the air is slightly cooler this high up. You don't know which and you don't care. You come down the other side, and somewhere ahead of you, invisible but present in every calculation you've made for the last 14 days, is California. You hit Oatman, which is an old gold mining town on the far side of the pass, and then the road drops fast and long toward the Colorado River, and the desert comes back, the Mojave with its final argument, and the temperature climbs back and the road goes straight and you drive. The Colorado River is brown and broad and moving with the particular authority of water in a waterless landscape. Water that knows it's the only water for a long way in every direction. You cross it on the bridge at Topok, and your father taps the steering wheel once with 2 fingers as you cross. A small gesture, private. The gesture of a man crossing a threshold he's been trying to reach. You are in California. The sign says California welcomes you, and beneath that, in smaller letters, Department of Agriculture inspection. Station ahead. All vehicles must stop. All vehicles must stop. Dottie has gone very still. Biscuit has come up from the floor and pressed himself against her leg, reading the stillness in her body. It'll be fine, your father says. You don't say anything. The inspection station is about 2 miles past the state line at Needles. It looks, from the road, like a way station or a toll booth. A low building on the left, a row of cones funneling traffic to a stop, a covered booth with a state inspector inside. There are 6 cars ahead of you. You can see the process. Each car pulls up. The inspector leans out. There's an exchange of words, sometimes a brief look in the vehicle's bed or trunk, and then either the car is waved through or it isn't. You watch. The car at the front of the line, a Ford like yours, packed roof to running board with family goods, Oklahoma plate, pulls up to the booth. The inspector leans out. There are words, brief. The inspector makes a gesture. Come around. And another inspector walks around the car, looking at it without touching it, and they exchange words, and the first inspector leans into the booth window, and then he comes back to the car and says something more. The car sits for a moment. Then it pulls through. You breathe. The cars ahead of you move. Herschel is somewhere behind you, having stopped for gas in Needles town before the inspection. You're in the line alone. 3 cars ahead, then 2, then 1, and then it's you. Your father pulls up to the booth. The inspector is a young man, mid-20s, California sunburn, a khaki uniform that looks like it's been pressed that morning. He has a clipboard. He looks at the truck. He looks at the roof load, the mattress, the furniture, the canvas-wrapped boxes. He looks at the Oklahoma plate. His face is professional, neutral, the face of someone doing a job they've been given a specific script for. Destination, he says. Bakersfield, your father says. Carrying any citrus, stone fruit, or other agricultural products from out of state? No, sir. Any firearms? A .22 rifle, your father says, for hunting. Unloaded in the cab. The inspector makes a note. Pull forward to the secondary inspection area, please. He points to a pull-off to the right, where 2 other cars are already stopped, 2 inspectors walking around them. Your father pulls forward. The secondary inspection area is a gravel pull-off about 30 feet long. You park, you sit. The inspectors come. There are 2 of them, and they do a thorough tour of the truck. One goes around the outside, looking at the tyres, looking at the undercarriage, looking at the visible load on the roof. The other one comes to the window. I'll need to see your funds, he says. Your father looks at him. How much do you have? This is the moment. You've been knowing it was coming since Herschel described it in Tucumcari, and you've been running the number and you've been calculating, and you've been arriving at the same answer each time. Your father reaches into his shirt and takes out the money bag. He holds it for a moment, and in that moment you understand something about dignity that you're going to carry for the rest of your life. He holds the bag with the particular composure of a man who has farmed 1,100 acres and raised 2 children and buried his wife and driven 14 days across a country that has been trying to defeat him, and he opens the bag and counts the money onto the dashboard. $7.12. You let out a breath. $7.12 is the right number. It's above $5, which is the floor that will get you turned back. It's below 10, which means they will look at it. They will assess it. They will write it on their clipboard with the expression of men doing a job they know is not entirely honest. The inspector writes it down. You're aware, he says, that California requires migrants to have sufficient means of support. $7 for a family of 3. He pauses. That's tight. We have work lined up in Bakersfield, your father says. His voice is level. My cousin has a farm. We have a letter. There is no cousin. There is no farm. There is no letter. There's only your father's level voice, and his hands flat on his knees, and his eyes meeting the inspector's eyes with the steady grey-blue clarity that is Earl Calloway's most fundamental characteristic. The inspector looks at him. He writes something on his clipboard. Pull through, he says. Your father puts the truck in gear. You drive through the inspection station. You are in California. You're actually, properly, officially in California, on the California side of the inspection station, on the California asphalt, with the California sun coming through the windshield and the California border behind you, and the long drop to the Mojave Valley ahead of you, and somewhere beyond it, somewhere past Barstow and the San Bernardino Mountains and the long pass through them, the valley where the oranges grow. Nobody says anything for a full minute. Dottie reaches over and takes your hand. You squeeze it once. You let go. Biscuit puts his head out the window and his ears go flat in the speed, and he squints into the heat. Your father drives. The road from Needles west toward Barstow is more Mojave, more creosote, more hardpan, more the specific beauty of a landscape that doesn't care whether you find it beautiful or not. But now the signs change. Now there are California signs, California highway markers, and the quality of the road improves almost immediately. The asphalt getting noticeably better, the surface smoother, the kind of difference that tells you which state values this road. You camp outside Barstow, a proper camp this time, a roadside camp with a well and a hand pump and a half-dozen other families, and you pump your water can full, and you fill the radiator, and you let Biscuit drink from the trough beside the pump, and you sit on the running board in the last of the evening light and feel the temperature coming down slowly, slowly, as the desert gives back some of what the sun put into it today. The camp has a quality different from the Texas and New Mexico camps. You notice it gradually sitting there. It's the same kind of people, the same cars with their loads, the same flour sack dresses and cracked leather boots and faces that have been on the road for various lengths of time. But there's something different in the texture of the conversations around you. Relief. That's what it is. Not happiness exactly. Not the end of anything. They're still in the desert. The pass through the San Bernardinos is tomorrow, and the San Bernardinos in July are serious. The orange groves are still a day away. The work, if there is work, is still ahead. But they're through the border. Whatever the inspection station is, whatever it is doing or trying to do, they're through it. And the particular tension of approaching it and surviving it has let go of the air. The way a sound stops and you don't realize how much space it was taking up until the silence comes. A man across the camp has a radio. a real radio running off a car battery, which is a considerable luxury. He's tuned to something out of Los Angeles, and the signal comes and goes as the static washes in. But when it clears, you can hear a band playing something slow and warm, a big band sound, the kind of music that belongs to hotel ballrooms and not to a desert camp outside Barstow in the summer of 37. Dottie is listening to it with her notebook open but her pencil still. Your father is checking the engine one more time, the final check of the evening, running his hands over the familiar parts in the last light. His hands move with the confidence of practiced knowledge, and you watch them and think about what those hands used to do. The fence posts, the tractor controls, the shucking corn, the particular work of a man whose life was built around a piece of land. The hands are the same. The purpose of the hands is different now, temporarily, pending California. Pass tomorrow, he says. Cajun Pass, you say. You've read about it. The road through the San Bernardinos. Then the valley. Then the valley. He looks up at you over the engine block. His face in the low western light is something, not the same as the face of the last 7 months. Something has come back into it that was gone for a while. Something that has to do with being on the right side of the line, with having gotten through the thing you needed to get through. You did well today, he says. This whole trip, you did well. You don't know what to say. Your mother would have... He stops. He starts again. She'd have said you were doing well. You stand very still. He puts the hood down. Get some sleep, he says. Pass is an early start. You eat that night with the Muskogee family and with a new family who joined the camp at dusk. A young couple with a baby from Mississippi with Mississippi accents as thick as syrup, who don't know anyone and are clearly barely holding it together. And Edna feeds the baby from her pot without being asked. And the young woman says thank you in a voice that's very close to not holding. And Edna says, honey, I know. And those 3 words contain more practical comfort than anything else said around that fire. You lie down under the truck. The desert is still releasing heat. The ground warm under your canvas. The truck's underside warm with the day's work. The engine ticks its cooling language, the specific clicks and sighs of metal contracting, a language you've learned to find comforting in the way that you find any familiar sound comforting, even one that's just physics. The radio is still going from across the camp. The signal is good tonight, the static low. The song is something you half recognize, something with a slow trumpet over it, and the trumpet goes up and down in a phrase that sounds like it's trying to say something specific that words can't quite manage. Tomorrow, Cajun Pass, the San Bernardinos, the descent into the inland valley. Tomorrow, California proper. You try to imagine it. The orange groves that look like they do in the pictures, the rows of dark green trees with the fruit bright against the leaves, the irrigation channels running between them, the work of picking which you don't know yet but which you will learn because you learn things. It's what you do, it's what your family does. The camp near Bakersfield that the thin man in Tucumcari mentioned, the wages, whatever they are. You try to imagine and you can't. Quite. It's too far from where you are. Too different from the ground under your back and the truck's underside above you and the desert smell and the radio going and the baby crying quietly somewhere in the camp and the particular flat ache of your body after 300 miles of July Arizona. But it's there, on the other side of the mountain. That's enough. You sleep. The Cajun Pass in the early morning is cold. Actually cold. Not Oklahoma winter cold. Not a cold that knows how to really commit. but the specific desert mountain cold of an early July morning at 4,000 feet that surprises you when you climb out from under the truck into it, the air crisp and clean and smelling of sage and granite and almost nothing else. You stand in it for a moment. You take a breath. The mountains ahead of you are outlined against a sky going from black to deep blue to the first faint grey of dawn at the eastern edge, and the mountains are enormous. The San Bernardinos rising from the desert floor with the abruptness of things that ease you into their presence. They're just there, suddenly, the way important things are suddenly there. The drive up the pass is a conversation between the truck and gravity has the home advantage. You go down to second gear for the serious grades, and the engine sounds like it's making an argument to itself, and your father's hands are in their position, 10 and 2, and the switchbacks come one after another in a sequence that forces full attention. Herschel is behind you again. He made it through the inspection station yesterday, you know, because you waited on the other side until you saw his Studebaker come through. Clara was in the passenger seat with her arms unfolded, which you noted as significant. The pass crests. And then you are above the clouds. There is a layer of marine clouds sitting in the valleys below, the summer overcast that the locals call the June gloom, even in July. A grey-white ceiling of low cloud lying over the inland valley like a blanket. You're above it. The sun is up now and hitting everything up here on the pass with full force, and below you, below the cloud, is California. The road begins to drop. You drop into the cloud. The temperature drops with you, the air going from warm and dry to cool and slightly damp, the cloud pressing softly against the windshield in a way that makes you turn on the wipers, which streak the glass in the way of wipers that have been in the sun too long, but leave you able to see. And then you're through the cloud and you can see. The inland valley spreads below you so far and so green that for a moment your brain doesn't know what to do with it. Green, after the Mojave and the Painted Desert and the Texas Panhandle, after months of brown and red and grey and the bleached colour of things dying slowly, the green of the inland valley is a physical impact. You don't have a word for how green it is. The agricultural green of irrigated land, the dark green of citrus orchards in their precise rows, the lighter green of other crops, the whole thing cut by the lines of irrigation channels that catch the morning light and throw it back as silver. Your father has stopped the truck. He's pulled off on a wide spot in the road, a pull-out that exists here precisely because other people have also needed to stop and look, other people from dry places who came around this bend and needed a minute with it. You're all three looking. Dottie has her notebook open, but she's not drawing. Biscuit has both front paws on the dashboard and his nose pressed to the windshield. The valley your father has been driving toward for 14 days. The valley the pamphlet promised. The valley that is both real and, now that you're looking at it, more real than the pamphlet managed to suggest. There it is, your father says, just that. He sits with it for a minute. You let him. Then he puts the truck in gear and you drive down into it. The smell comes up through the open window as you descend. The smell of irrigated farmland, which is a complicated smell. The green vegetable smell of growing things. The particular rich smell of soil that has water in it. The faint sweetness of citrus blossom that might be fading now in July but that's still present in the air. After the dust and the motor oil and the unwashed everything, this smell is almost disorienting. Your body doesn't know what to do with it. It keeps trying to classify it as something to be worried about, the way you've classified smells for the last 2 weeks, and it can't find the worry. It's just growing things. It's just the smell of things growing in the dark, wet ground. You drive through San Bernardino, which is a real city with real streets and real stores and a downtown and people who have not been on Route 66 for 2 weeks and do not have that look, the look you all have, the road look. You drive through Fontana and through Rialto, and the road flattens out, and the San Bernardinos recede behind you in the mirror, getting smaller the way things get smaller when you've gotten past them. Bakersfield is 3 hours north on a different road, the US 99, which runs up the Central Valley like a seam. You stop for gas in Fontana. The station is clean. The man is friendly in the way of California friendly, which is different from Texas friendly or Oklahoma friendly. Warmer on the surface, slightly harder to read underneath. The warmth of a place that has learned to be welcoming because it's also learned that the welcome has limits that it doesn't talk about directly. He charges you the posted price. He fills your can with water. He says, "You head into the valley for picking season?" "Bakersfield," your father says. "Yeah." He looks at the truck not unkindly. "You'll find work. Peach season starting. Grapes in a couple weeks. It's not." He pauses. "The camps get crowded. Just be prepared." "We've been prepared," your father says. The man nods. He hands back your change. You take the road north. The valley opens up around you, wide as a seabed, which it was once, which you've heard, which you can almost believe looking at the flat, absolute floor of it, with the mountains ringing it on both sides, the Sierra Nevada to the east, white-capped even in July. The crops are everywhere. The rows of the orchards go back from the road in their long parallels with the mathematical order of cultivation, the order of someone having decided that the land will do what they say and the land agreeing, provisionally, as long as the water comes. Dottie is drawing now. The rows of the orchards, the flat valley floor. She draws fast and she covers 3 pages of the notebook. "Can I see?" you ask. She holds the notebook up without stopping. The drawings are... You sit with them for a moment. The line of an orchard going back to a vanishing point. The quality of the flat light in the valley. The way the irrigation channels catch the light. She's got something in these drawings, something you don't have a word for, something that's hers specifically, something that the road hasn't taken from her, something that she brought with her and still has. You hand the notebook back. You reach Bakersfield in the late afternoon of the 14th day since you left Boise City, Oklahoma. The migrant camp outside town is exactly what the thin man in Tucumcari said it was. Full in the specific way of a place built for 50 families that currently has 120. The cars are packed close, the tents crowded, the waterline long. Children run between the vehicles. Women hang laundry on lines strung between anything that holds still. You find a spot at the edge of the camp near a dry ditch and you park. You kill the engine. The silence. You have driven 2,340 miles more or less in 14 days. You have spent $11.43 down to $3.19. You have crossed 7 states, refueled 22 times, added oil 16 times, topped up the radiator 9 times, repaired 1 tire, replaced 2 spark plugs, replaced 1 fan belt, and crossed 1 mountain range. The crack in the block is still there. The truck is still here. You are still here. Your father turns off the ignition and puts the key in his shirt pocket and puts both hands flat on the steering wheel and looks straight ahead through the streaked windshield at the camp in front of you. "We're here," he says. "Yeah," you say. Dottie is quiet. Then, "Where do we start?" Your father looks at the camp. He looks at the people moving through it. He finds, somewhere in the back of the camp, a row of trees visible over the line of vehicles. Not oranges. Peaches, you think. The particular shape of a peach tree, the rounded canopy, the way they hold themselves. In the morning, he says, we find the foreman. We ask about the peach work. He pauses. Tonight we set up. Tonight we set up. 7 words that contain everything, that contain the acknowledgement that this is the next thing and there is a next thing, that the arriving was not the end of anything but a beginning of something else, that the road is over but the reason for the road is starting now, and starting now requires canvas over the truck bed, blanket for Dottie, water from the camp pump, whatever food is in the supply box, finding the camp facilities, finding out who runs the camp and what the rules are and who can be trusted and who can't. The things you know how to do. You get out of the truck. The air is warm and it smells of irrigation and peaches, and the particular dry grass smell of the valley in summer, and the communal smell of a camp, the smell you've been living in, the smell that has recalibrated your normal. Biscuit jumps down from the truck bed and immediately puts his nose to the ground and begins an investigation of the new territory with the comprehensive attention of an animal that has decided this is interesting. A woman in a blue dress with a baby on her hip comes over from the next campsite. She's been on the road longer than you. You can tell the particular settledness of her in this space, the way she knows where the water is and where the fire pit is. Oklahoma, she says. Yes, ma'am, your father says. She nods. The specific nod of someone confirming information they already had. Come eat with us tonight. We've got a pot on. She looks at Dottie, then at you. You look like you've been driving hard. 14 days, you say, she nods again. Food first, camp after. Your father looks at her. In the late afternoon light, his face is what it is, what it has been, what it will be. The weathered face of a man who farmed Oklahoma for 23 years and then drove a 1928 Ford Model A to California on $11 because there was nothing else to do and something had to be done and he was the one who had to do it. But right now, tonight, in this camp outside Bakersfield, with the Sierra Nevada going purple in the east, and the peach trees visible at the back of the camp, and the smell of something cooking, his face is also something else. He looks like a man who made it. Thank you, he says. You eat with the woman in the blue dress and her husband, who is a man of few words from Missouri, and their baby who eats the same beans as everyone else, and seems to find this acceptable. You eat with Herschel and Clara, who arrived an hour after you and are already arguing in their specific married people who are not married way about where to park the Studebaker. You eat with the Muskogee family who have a spot across the camp and brought their pot over when they saw where you were. You eat the beans and you eat the bread and you drink water from the camp's well, which is clean mountain runoff from the Sierra, cold and clear and tasting of nothing except itself. And this might be the best water you've ever tasted. This complete neutral purity after weeks of barrel water and can water and pump water with the specific mineral signatures of desperate places. The stars come out above the Central Valley. Different stars here in a different sky. The same stars, but the mountains change the horizon, and the air is different, and the smell is different, and you are in a different place than you've been before, though you're the same person who stood on the Oklahoma farm 1,100 acres of which the bank owns now, the same person who loaded the truck and drove away. You are, and you aren't. Dottie is talking to the baby. The baby has reached the age, around 8 months, where everything is fascinating and everything goes in the mouth, and Dottie is introducing him to Biscuit with the careful formality of a diplomat, arranging a meeting between important parties, holding Biscuit's collar while the baby reaches a hand toward the dog's ear. Biscuit sits very still, which is not his default, which is a gift he's giving. You watch this. You think, she's going to be fine. She has been fine. She will keep being fine. Your father is talking to the Missouri man in the low voice register that men use for practical information, and you catch fragments. Picking starts at 6. Foreman's name is Harkins. He's square. Bring your own ladder if you have one. You don't have one. You'll need one. There are ways to get one. There are always ways. There are always ways. Herschel comes and sits beside you in the gathering dark. Made it, he says. Made it. You agree. Studebaker made it. I saw. He's quiet for a moment. You've spent enough time sitting in the dark with Herschel at this point to have learned that his silences are purposeful, that he uses them the way he uses words, economically, with intent. You've done something, he says finally. You and your family. Most people couldn't. He stops. Most people understand this road in theory. Knowing it and doing it are different things. You look at the mountains in the dark. It's not over, you say. We're in a camp on the edge of a town we don't know, with $3, and we need to find work by next week or... I know, he says. I know what it is. I'm not saying it's over. He looks at you. I'm saying you got here. You sit with that for a moment. Yeah, you say, we got here. He nods. He gets up. He goes back to the Studebaker where Clara is now sitting in the passenger seat, looking at what you assume is a letter from the daughter in San Diego. You stay where you are a little longer. The camp sounds. Children settling. The Missouri man and your father still talking, practical voices the language of what needs doing. Somewhere a dog is barking at something in the dark, and Biscuit's ears come up and he considers it and decides against responding. You think about the road, 14 days of it, the dust of the Texas Panhandle, and the red rock of New Mexico, and the painted desert and the Mojave, and the Cajon Pass and the valley. The Studebaker's wobbling rear end in the mirror. The water measured in 4-ounce increments. The spark plugs and the fan belt and the crack wrapped in electrical tape. The inspection station and your father's money on the dashboard, and the inspector's face doing its calculation. The woman in the blue dress's beans. Herschel's coffee tin in the cold pre-dawn. Edna's pinto beans with the fat back. Clara's potato soup. The way people on this road feed each other without making it a thing. The way the sharing happens in the gaps between the counted pennies and the frayed nerves, in the places where the calculation breaks down and something else takes over, something older than the arithmetic, something that knows that the only actual insurance available is the person standing next to you. You think about this. You think about the man on the road who waded through the Rio Pecos flood in his bare feet to test the depth for others. The gas station man who put out a sign that said water free. The woman in Flagstaff who sold you a loaf of bread and added a second, smaller loaf for nothing when she thought your father wasn't looking. There is a particular kind of human behaviour that comes out under specific conditions. Not better behaviour exactly. You've also seen the signs on the fence posts and the closed faces in the diner mirrors and the border inspection. Not better, but real. Something that's in people at the level below the calculations, the level that says, this is another person, and they need something I can give. And so, you've been on the receiving end of it enough times on this road that you've begun to feel the obligation of it. The obligation to pass it on. To be, to someone coming behind you, what Clara was to you with her kerosene stove and her potato soup. Dottie sits down next to you. The baby has been returned to its mother. Biscuit puts his head in her lap. Tomorrow, she says. Tomorrow, you agree. She opens the notebook. She shows you the drawing she made coming down the Cajun Pass. The valley from above, the cloud layer, the green in the distance. It's a small drawing, done fast in the particular shorthand she's developed, but it has something in it. That drawing, something that catches the quality of the moment, the size of it, the arrival of it, the way it looked coming round the bend and seeing all that green after all that not green. You should keep those, you say. She closes the notebook. I am keeping them, she says. You sit in the dark outside Bakersfield for a while longer. The mountains to the east are not visible now, just a darker shape against the dark sky. A presence. The camp settles. The fires die down. Tomorrow your father will find the foreman named Harkins and ask about the peach work. Tomorrow you will find out what 75 cents a day or 60 cents a day or whatever it actually is means in practical terms, in rent and food and oil for the truck terms. Tomorrow you will begin to learn the particular knowledge of this valley the way you learned the knowledge of this road. Step by step, day by day, the body accumulating information that the mind hasn't processed yet. Tonight is tonight. You have enough, not much, but enough. You're warm enough, fed enough, safe enough, here enough. You have the truck that made it. You have your father's hands on the steering wheel. You have Dottie's drawings and her capacity for being fine in situations that aren't fine. You have Biscuit's tail and his 3 circles before he sleeps, and his complete willingness to believe that wherever you've arrived is the right place to be. You have $3.19 and a quart of water and half a box of crackers, and the address of the camp which you've written in the back of Dottie's notebook, because addresses are the things you gather now. You have, somewhere in the back of the truck, wrapped in an old shirt, a photograph of your mother. In the photograph, she's standing in front of the farmhouse in a cotton dress in the particular light of an Oklahoma late afternoon, squinting slightly into the camera, almost smiling but not quite. The almost smile of someone who has a lot to do and is taking a moment from it for this picture, for this record of a moment that seemed ordinary then. It's not ordinary now. It's the most important thing in the truck. You'll unpack it tomorrow. You'll find a place for it in wherever you end up. The camp, and then beyond the camp, and then whatever comes after. But that's tomorrow. Right now, there's this. The dark and the mountains and the smell of growing things and the camp settling into night around you and the stars that are the same stars they've always been. The same ones over the farm and over the road and over this valley where you are now. You lie down under the truck. The ground here is different, softer, actual soil, the real black Central Valley soil that's been farming for 100 years, not the hard pan of the desert. Your canvas lies on it differently, the way a blanket lies on a soft bed versus a floor. You notice this. The engine above you ticks as it cools. The camp is quiet now, mostly. The late-night sounds, someone's baby, far away. A radio going very low, almost nothing. The wind in the peach trees at the edge of the camp, a different sound than wind in the cedar scrub, a sound that has weight to it, the weight of fruit. You close your eyes. The smell of the valley comes in on the late wind, the irrigation, and the green, and the something sweet, and under it all the earth, this California earth that you are now sleeping on, that is now the ground under your body, that will be the ground your hands work and your feet stand on, and your life unfolds on, for a while, for as long as this. Here is what you know about the place you've come to. The work will be hard. You've been told it's hard and you've worked hard before, and that part you can do. The money will be less than the money needs to be, probably, at least at first. The camp will be crowded and the facilities inadequate, and the foreman will have the power to decide whether you work or don't. And some of them will use that power justly and some of them won't. The locals will have the specific relationship to you that locals have to newcomers who arrive in large numbers without being invited, which is complicated and not always kind. None of that is a surprise. None of that is worse than the road. You came down the road. You came through the inspection station. You came over the mountain. The valley is real. The work is real. The $3.19 is real. The rest is tomorrow. The wind in the peach trees. The ticking of the engine. Your father's voice earlier tonight saying, "Your mother would have said you were doing well. She would have. You know it." No. You knew her well enough to know it. She would have said it straight and simple, the way she said everything, the way of a woman who had no patience for sentiment, but no tolerance either for failing to say the true thing when the true thing needed saying. She would have said, "You did well. You did well." The thought comes in and doesn't have its usual edge, doesn't cut the way it cuts sometimes in the 3 a.m. under the truck, the missing her that has a specific physical location in your chest, slightly left of center. It comes in and it settles and it's just the true thing, true and present and bearable. The camp sleeps, the valley breathes. You think about the road, you think about it one last time, the whole thing, east to west, the way you'd run a length of rope through your hands to check it, the flat desolation of the Panhandle and the red rock of New Mexico and the painted desert in its evening colors and the Mojave in its white heat and the Cajon Pass and the drop into the valley. You run it through your hands. You feel every mile of it. You feel the hard ground and the water counted out and the money going down and the engine holding and the crack in the block and the border inspector's face and your father's money on the dashboard. You feel all of it, and then you let it go. Not because it wasn't real. It was real. It'll be real tomorrow when you're the person who crossed it, when someone else on this road asks you how it was, and you tell them what Herschel told you, what you'll pass on the way it was passed to you, the Sinclair in Santa Rosa, not the Phillips, the Mojave before dawn, the water, always the water, the inspection station, here's what to say. But tonight you let it go. Tonight there's just the dark and the sleeping camp and the peach trees and the soil that's softer than the desert and the stars doing what they do, the stars that were over the farm, the stars that were over the road, the stars over the valley, the same stars, going nowhere. Neither are you. Not tonight. Tonight you're here. You're exactly here. Under the truck in the California dark with your father's breathing above you and your sister sleeping, and Biscuit in his 3 circles. And the work is tomorrow, and tomorrow is coming. And until it does, there is nothing asked of you but this, to lie down and let the ground hold you and sleep. Let it come. Let the day's work release you, the way it releases at the end of every day, whether you let it or not. Let the miles stop counting. Let the gauge stop climbing. Let the money stop calculating. Let the crack in the block be what it is, which is tomorrow's concern, and let tomorrow be what it is, which is not yet here. The wind in the peach trees is a sound like rest. Your body knows that sound. It's been waiting for it. The miles come down, 14 days of them, the dust of 7 states, the weight of 1,100 acres and 1 green valley and $3 and change, all of it coming down now, settling. The way the desert dust settles when the wind stops slowly and completely until the air is clear. You are warm enough, fed enough, here enough, that's enough. Let sleep take you the way the road takes everything, completely without apology, the way a thing that is large enough to contain a person takes a person in. Let the sounds of the camp become the sounds of dreams, the baby's cry and the wind and the radio and the engine ticking. Let them blur and soften and go quiet. Somewhere on Route 66 tonight, there are other families. Other trucks with other engines and other cracks in other blocks and other children in flour sack dresses and other fathers with their hands on the steering wheel and their faces arranged against what they're feeling. They're driving toward this valley. They're on the road you came down. Some of them will make it. Some of them won't. Some of them will hit the Mojave in the afternoon like you almost did, and the engine will go, and there will be a choice to make on the shoulder of the road in 110-degree heat, and the choice will be hard in ways you can feel from here. Some of them will stand in front of the inspection station and count their money on the dashboard and look at the inspector's face and wait. Some of them have already left, and some of them haven't left yet, and some of them are still trying to decide, standing in the yard of a farmhouse somewhere in Oklahoma or Texas or Kansas, with the wind blowing and a piece of paper in their hands with the number on it, deciding. They're all of them heading toward the same place, toward the same valley you're lying in now, toward the same green and the same Sierra Nevada and the same work and the same camps and the same complicated truth of this place that promised and delivers something, though not always what it promised, and not always to everyone. They're coming. The road will take them, and you'll be here, in this valley, under this sky, under this truck, one more night on the road's terms, and then, in the morning, on yours. Good night.